Joining us now, Steve Reed, Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Good morning to you, Minister. How can we use AI to help with our flood defences?
Well, good morning, Kay. I think there are many applications for AI right across the economy. One of the things that you could do with AI, for instance, is get earlier warning of when water levels are rising. So it's able to predict when flood is coming, and you can give people earlier warning about what's going to happen. I'm in the control room here of the Ipswich tidal barrier, and the earlier warning that we can give to people who may be at risk from any flooding, the better prepared they can be to avoid any of the damage that might be caused by it.
There has been significant underfunding in this area for years. So will you always be playing catch up?
You're right to say there's been significant underfunding, because our flood defences are today in the worst state on record. And on the part of the previous government, I believe that was a dereliction of duty, because it's left many, many people at risk of flooding. And 1 in 6 people across our country watching this show live in a home that's at risk of flooding. So what this government is doing, and what I'm announcing today, is an increase in funding of over 25% to protect homes, businesses, communities from flooding. We're increasing funding to £2.65 billion over the next 2 years. That means funding new defences, such as the one being planned for Derby city centre that I visited last year, but also more for maintaining current flood defences that are in such a terrible state of disrepair.
Talk to me about Nottingham. Your colleague Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has spoken this morning saying there will be an inquiry into what happened with that triple murder. Just to clarify, will it be a judicial inquiry?
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to the family of those who were affected by that terrible incident in Nottingham. I'm sure everyone looking at this will feel exactly the same way about that. It will be for Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, to give us more information about exactly what the inquiry will be like and when it will happen indeed. But I think it's absolutely right, it should happen, because it seems that at every single stage in this case, everything went wrong. We've had a review from the CQC on what those failings were. The Health Secretary has already said those findings will be applied so that we can learn lessons, but there's clearly much more to look into in this case, and this major probe that he's setting up will make sure those lessons are learned and then can be applied so that this kind of thing can't happen again.
Talk to me about the Chagos Islands. Far-reaching interview with you this morning, Minister. We believe the deal is expected to cost something like £90 million a year for 99 years. So Diego Garcia can be rented back to us as an airbase. That's £9 billion. Is that the best use of that money?
Well, clearly, when this government came in, negotiations were already underway about the future of that base, and its future was not secure. Our priority is security, of course. So those negotiations continue. There were some figures that were being, I read them, I'm sure your viewers did too, yesterday. The Foreign Office has confirmed those figures were wrong, but we need to wait and find out exactly where these negotiations end up before we'll know for certain.
What I believe is that a lot of the money, though, whatever the figure becomes, will be given to Mauritius up front. What's that going to do to your economic black hole?
Well, we have to secure the future of that military base. It's in a very important strategic location globally. It's not just the UK, of course, that has an interest here. So does the US, and the government is making sure that we hear the views of the US before we take a final decision. But we need to wait and see what the final outcome of those negotiations are. But I can confirm those rather extraordinary figures we heard being banded around yesterday are not correct.
OK, you mentioned the United States. I'm sure you've heard overnight President Trump saying that he'd like to take over Gaza by force if necessary and make it the Riviera of the Middle East. Is that something the British government would support?
I can tell you what the UK's position on this is, and our view is that Palestinian civilians have been through a living nightmare for the last 14 months. They need to be able to return to their homes and then start to rebuild them. They will need an awful lot of support from the international community to do that. But what we really want to get to is a long-lasting peace for this region, where we've seen conflagrations breaking out so frequently and most horrifically over the last 14 months. We need to get to a lasting peace. That can only be based on a two-state solution with a secure Israel living at peace with its neighbours and a free and viable Palestinian state alongside.
And in answer to my question, Minister?
Well, I can give you the UK government's view. What I won't do, Kay, you'll forgive me, is provide a running commentary on the pronouncements of the President of the United States or any other world leader.
I sounded a little bit disparaging of him.
Not at all. I think we should give Donald Trump credit for the role that he played in securing this ceasefire in the first place. But it is the view of the United Kingdom government that Palestinians should be able to return to their homes and rebuild their shattered lives.
I started by introducing you with your long title. You're responsible for farming, of course, and you did guarantee to the farmers that inheritance tax raid wouldn't happen on their farms. You described it as desperate nonsense and no intention. We know that it happened. Have you made peace with them since?
The government did not know the state of the public finances when we came in, and farmers will still get the best deal on inheritance tax available to anybody. They will only be paying half the rate anyone else has to pay, and rather than having to pay it all at once as anyone else would have to, they will be able to phase it over 10 years. But I'm working with farmers to address the deeper problem affecting that sector, which is it simply isn't profitable. So we're looking at what we can do to help them there. I want to get to a position where 50% of public sector food contracts are used to buy British food, at least 50%. That's money straight into farmers' pockets. And we're seeking a new veterinary deal with the European Union. That will get British food exports moving across the border. They've fallen by 20% since 2018. That will be money straight into the pockets of farmers. So if we can get the farming sector more profitable for all of that hard work that farmers put in, I think that will be to the benefit of everybody that works there.
Well, why did you refer to it as desperate nonsense and no intention and making promises when you didn't know what you were dealing with?
There was no intention before the election to do that because we did not know the state of the public finances.
So why make promises?
The previous government is being investigated by the Office for Budget Responsibility, which they set up for concealing the true state of the public finances. So I've said to farmers, I'm sorry that we had to take that decision because of the way that the Conservatives have concealed what was really going on, but we have ensured that farmers get a better deal on inheritance tax than anybody else in the country.
Thanks for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it. Thank you.